All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this DCUC virtual event. I want to thank you all for joining us for today's special live and virtual discussion with U.S. House Majority Whip Congressman Tom Emmer from Minnesota's 6th District. I'm Tony Hernandez, DCUC President and CEO, and I'll be guiding us through today's session. We're excited to bring you this important conversation hosted by Defense Credit Union Council, where we will feature Congressman Tom Emmer as we dive into key topics, including digital asset regulation, top financial services priorities for House leadership, bipartisan bills with the best chance of passing, and ways credit unions can effectively engage in these critical processes. As House Majority Whip and a key member of the House Financial Services Committee, Congressman Emmer is a strong advocate for both military families and a resilient financial sector. His extensive experience spanning 5 congressional terms and significant leadership roles provides an invaluable perspective for credit union advocates, especially during a pivotal year. Before we get started, a quick reminder. We encourage you to submit any questions in the chat during the Q&A session. We'll address as many times as it allows at the end of the conversation. And also, I'd ask for everybody to make sure your mics are muted so we don't get any background or echoes during the session. But again, please send your questions. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Congressman and House Majority Whip Tom Emmer to kick off today's session. Congressman, thank you for being here today.
Great to be with you and your members, Tony.
Well, great, sir. You and I have met before, and I recognize the office. Tell me a little bit about the things you do. What's typical in the day of the life of the House Majority Whip?
I don't know that anything's typical, but it's you have been here. This is the nicest office in the Capitol, but that's not what makes the job so much fun. The job is literally working with all of our members, much like you with all of your members. We're in the customer service business, right? Our job is to help members who come to Washington to make things happen for the people they represent. Our job is to help them do that. Somebody asked me once, Tony, about the job, much like you did, and I said, it's the best coaching job anyone's ever given me. You need to understand who's on the bench. You need to understand strengths and weaknesses, what people can and can't do, what they will and won't do. And then you need to make sure that you build trust with them so that they know that whatever they share with you is not going to be public information unless they designate it as such. It's been a great 3 years so far, a little bit more than I guess we're in our 3rd year right now. It's probably one of the greatest jobs in Congress because it's never boring. It's always moving. And everybody says you're never going to be able to get that done. And so far, this Congress in particular, we've shown 3 times now where they said this is never going to happen, passing Republican-only budget resolutions and budget continuing resolutions through the end of the fiscal year. It's been very rewarding, but we got a lot of work ahead of us. And just so your members know, this is the number 3 position, right? The number 1 is the speaker, and he's responsible for everything, the campus, the security, the agenda. Number 2 is the majority leader, and the majority leader's job is pretty basic. He develops a calendar for the year of when we're going to be in session and when we're not. He works with chairs of different committees, and when legislation is ready for the floor, he schedules the floor. But all of that doesn't happen unless the whip's office performs. And you know what, Tony? We've been performing. We're going to keep performing. It's a lot of fun.
I can see that, Congressman. I would imagine, counting has a lot to do with it. At least getting to 218, and I agree. I've seen where people were skeptical things were going to happen, but somehow, that number has appeared many times. So congratulations on all that.
By the way, when you talk about the counting, just as you might find it humorous, but I am serious. I think someday I'm going to write a book as to the greatest answers when you say, so if I were whipping you, Tony, I'd say, Tony, where are you at with this bill? And you might say to me, oh, I think we're in a good place. And my response at that point would be, yeah, but is that a yes or a no? Or I've heard, I don't run at the first sounds of gunfire. All these different things that you hear, and it's got to get to, I'm sorry, but is that a yes or a no? It's a lot
at
of fun.
the end of the day. Yeah, what side are you on, and are we going to get there? I do want to take a moment, sir, and ask you some basic questions. And I do this with all our one-on-ones and fireside chats and now virtual things. But I like to go back, and just kind of ask you, where did you grow up, and what what did you do when you were in high school, whether it was sports, band, or just hanging out. So yeah, just where do you come from, sir?
So I come from the great state of Minnesota, and I know that your last station was in North Dakota. So I like to tell people when the winds start blowing up north in that cold, flat North Dakota, a lot of the people get blown down to the Twin Cities in Minnesota. I grew up in a suburb of Minneapolis called Edina. I went to St. Thomas Military Academy.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, and I was not just academics. My grandfather went to a Catholic high school called De La Salle in Minneapolis, and he sent all of his boys to a Catholic military high school called St. Thomas Academy, and I just followed in my dad's footsteps. Played football, played hockey, played tennis, and found my way after that. I had a lot of fun. In the summer of 1979, I was one of 40 chosen to try out for the U.S. Junior Olympic hockey team, which got me a trip to Boston for a year, and then came home when the family's lumber business went upside down during as people will remember, the late 70s before the 80s really kicked in under Reagan. And then when it was time to go back to BC, I had a guy show up at one of my junior hockey games and say to me, unless you think you're going to play in the pros, you might think about coming to the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, Alaska, where I just got the head coaching job. And he told me you can get an education, you can play hockey, but he sold me when he said you can hunt and fish like nowhere else. So I'm a graduate of the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. Living in a cabin, Tony, probably
Right.
prepared me well for serving in Congress.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So, just being out there on the frontier, so to speak, and just doing great things. So, yeah, I get, the military school and sports, all the teamwork that's involved with playing team sports and with hockey. Tennis a little bit different. That's all on you, right?
That's right.
But but what got you interested in politics? To begin with.
You know, it's funny. My wife and I was practicing law. We were just married, just finished law school, buying our first house. We moved about 40 miles west of downtown Minneapolis, and we bought this old. I mean, we're literally in the country. I've got a farm across the street. It's the old Shady Beach Resort Hotel that we bought and we were redoing. But it's interesting because that was the process. I was at the law firm one afternoon. My wife called. She was very upset because the local public works guy had come through and spray painted 200-year-old oaks and 200-year-old maple trees, which were in the right of way on the dirt road that faced wide open farm field. And she was devastated because they said they were coming in the next day to take the trees out because they were going to be paving the road in the near future. And I called the mayor of our town, Marvin Johnson, who just retired after 38 years as the mayor of Independence, Minnesota. He owned a farm on the other side of town. He drove out to my place, met me at like 10 o'clock at night with his old beat up Cadillac and the lights shining on the right of way. And we're looking at the trees. And this is so long ago, Tony, that he had one of those block phones, those cell phones that look like a big
Right.
brick. And he took it out and he called Danny Cook, the director of Public Works, and he said, "I'm over at the Emmers, and this is what I'm seeing. What are we doing?" And all I hear him say is, "Uh-huh, uh-huh." And then he says, "Yeah, no, we're going to move the road 50 feet away from the Emmers house. These trees are going to be saved." And I
Wow.
thought, wow, that's the way it's going to work. And it was that experience, but the one that really kicked me in was then they came by like the following year and assessed me $30,000 for a sewer that I didn't need and I didn't want to pay for. So that got me going to city council meetings. And the next thing you knew, I was on two different city councils for a decade. And then just naturally ended up in the Minnesota State Legislature for 3 terms. And I ran for governor in the state of Minnesota and came within 8,100 votes of
Wow.
being elected in 2010. That's what puts me here.
That's great. Well, when you got into Congress, what led you to the leadership position? Was it just shaking a lot of hands, making contacts, doing things for people, or how did that happen?
It's always that. I mean, my life is always about the customer and everybody that I work with, I'm working for. But actually, it happened in a kind of an odd way now that you asked. Nobody's ever asked me that question because I didn't have any plan. A lot of people who come to Congress have a plan. Oh, I'm going to be this and then I'm going to be that. And that's not what I'm doing. At this stage of my life, I just want to do the best job I can possibly do for the people that I'm working for at home. And when I came to Congress, as you might tell from the story I just told you, I never had any plans to be in Congress. I planned to be in Minnesota. That's where I'm from. That's where I live. And then this opportunity presented itself. And it was like, maybe that's what all of that, maybe this is what all of that was about. So I ran and I came here without much understanding. I realized when I got here 2 major things, one of which is making sure that the financial policies in this country are open so that we can have innovation, so that we can have access to capital on Main Street all across this country, which I think we've been hurting for the last 40 years with more and more regulations trying to protect people from their own risk-taking initiatives, some of which is good, a lot of which has been bad. I realized right away that is one of the main reasons I'm here. The other one, to change the culture. This place is a place that's supposed to be getting things done. I definitely have a political perspective that is perhaps on the very conservative side of the ledger if people are looking at it. But I understand that in order for me to succeed with the things that I think are important, I have to convince not only my colleagues, but people on the other side of the aisle to join me in getting these things done. Because, and the best sales you can have is not that you're a Republican or a Democrat, it's because it works and your people at home are going to be very grateful for you being involved in it, whether you're on my team or you're on the other team. So it was that changing culture. And then what I did, we lost in 2018, Tony. We lost the majority in 2018. I got up the day after the election and I told my wife, I know what I'm supposed to do. I want to run the campaign operation for the House Republicans because I know a thing or two about campaigns, having had one major statewide one. And anybody that's watching this who's run for office probably will know what I'm talking about. You learn more from losing a campaign than you ever learn from winning. And the fact that I had lost that so close, despite being outspent by some accounts, about 30 million to 6, and it was 8,100 votes out of 2.1 million. It taught me a lot. And there's another thing. When you run for office after a loss like that, you're forced to actually look at yourself, what you could have done better, what you could have controlled better. It just was a learning experience that I thought was invaluable. My colleagues elected me to run the national congressional campaign office in 2020, and my goal was to flip the House in a 2-year presidential cycle for the first time since 1952, I think it was. And of course, everybody that's a prognosticator and the mainstream media, they were predicting we were going to lose as many as 24 seats, but we changed the way we do campaigns around here. We not only didn't lose 24 seats, we won 12 that we didn't have. And we came within just 5 votes, I think it was, or very close to taking the majority in that 2-year cycle. And then my colleagues gave me a chance to do it in the following cycle, the 22 cycle, where we did win the majority. And after we won the majority, that's why you can see you make all these relationships. I understand the political challenges that my colleagues have in their different districts. That's it just fits the whip's job. And that's just the natural progression, I guess.
Can definitely see that, building consensus and getting people on board. And I like what you said about taking a look at yourself and some self-reflection. That's always harsh. I have two girls, and they're very harsh in their in their assessment. But if it's taken the right vein, I think we become better people as a result.
Sure.
Um, yeah, well, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things you're working on. Specifically digital assets and regulation. And I wanted to ask you, sir, in your view, what should be the top priority when it comes to digital assets?
Well, I mean, first off, I don't know that you and I have ever talked about this, but when I was elected whip, I was told immediately by then Speaker Kevin McCarthy that you can suspend your committee activity because when you're the speaker, the majority leader, the whip, you're going to have too much to do already. You might appreciate, Tony, I've got 10 years invested into this. I was not going to walk away from the work that I've been doing for the last decade. I mean, I
Yeah.
love serving on capital markets. I love serving in the insurance committee, housing. But at the end of the day, it was the digital asset stuff that I've been working on for 8, 9 years. I was one of the first in Congress to be focused on it. And the group was small back then. Obviously, it's very large now. But I told Kevin, no, I'm going to continue my committee work, and been very fortunate because in the last Congress we had Patrick McHenry,
Mhm.
who worked with me so that I could actually do the things that I needed to do on committee. And now we have French Hill, who, quite frankly, has forgotten more about banking than I'm ever going to know, having worked in the H.W. Bush Treasury and done all the things he's done in the private sector. So it's really good to stay involved with the committee, and especially in this 21st century digital assets financial services area. One of the most important things right now is getting some things signed into law is the most important thing. And you could pick a variety of different topics. There are three that are at the top of my mind. And obviously there's a bunch of mine after that I would love to see. But the top two would be dollar-backed stablecoin legislation and the market structure legislation. And then the third one that I would put with those two is the prohibition on a central bank digital currency. And just talking about them in reverse order, the reason that a prohibition on central bank digital currency is so important is not just because it's a potential surveillance tool for our government in this space. I mean, this is what the digital yuan is all about. The CCP in China is literally using the digital yuan to track purchases, behavior, and they're building social scores. So,
Mhm.
if you got bad habits, and guess who gets to define the bad habits? It's the big central authority. So, that's not an American value, and that's not what we want here. But people need to understand it goes beyond just the potential abuses and surveillance tool. It literally is it would be the beginning of the destruction of our two-tier banking system. You just if you have a central bank digital currency, that is just the first step towards the central bank being the currency, right? And handling all of it. And look, I know people might say, "Oh, that's a little dramatic," but really, I mean, they've been talking about the Fed having an account for every American for at least some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle for a long time. This is for some on the other side, and I would argue it's for some of the more extreme. This is something they would really like, and they're the ones that have been fighting against it. And I thank President Trump, who during his campaign said that if he's the president, there will never be a central bank digital currency. So get rid of that one, and I think that's going to happen. My hope is it's to the president's desk by August. The next one to me would be the FIT 21 or the market structure bill. A lot of people would tell you it's the stablecoin bill, but I start with this one because you got to have this one so people know how to participate in the marketplace. Literally, the problem we've been having in this country that's been driving innovation away, the reason we have scam artists like Sam Bankman Fried holding up in the Bahamas is because people don't know the rules here. They don't want to come here if they're going to be the focus of Gary Gensler's attention, if they're going to be, under investigation by God knows what, the SEC, the CFTC, the FDIC, who knows? Name your alphabet soup agency. The issue here is Fit 21, and I don't know that that's what French is going to call this next version. Because remember, things have changed from the last Congress. Yes, we got to work with Democrats. We'll need 7 Democrat votes in the Senate. But we just saw a CRA eliminating a Biden era rule in this area that almost 20 Democrats in the Senate voted for. And by the way, almost 100 Democrats in the House voted for. This is a nonpartisan issue, and it has to stay that way. So Fit 21 would be the second one. And for me, I'll make it very clear to anybody listening. I was fine with the bill that we did last year, but it wasn't my favorite. Why? Because I thought it continued to give more authority to the federal government, specifically the SEC and other agencies related to this spot. I give you an example, 2 examples. One, the SEC is the one that decides when a project is fully decentralized. Well, I don't want to give them that authority, Tony. I've seen how that authority has been abused by the SEC. Another one says, hey, it's going to be a state-based system, which I agree with completely. But they said all of it has to be approved through the Fed. That doesn't sound like a state-based system to me. That sounds like the Federal Reserve is going to be telling these states what they can and can't do. So there are some changes that need to happen. I have a lot of confidence in French Hill and everyone on the committee in getting this done. And when I say everyone, I'm not just talking about Republicans. The Democrats on the House Financial Services Committee are every bit as important as the Republicans when it comes to financial issues, and they're all going to be involved under French Hill's leadership, much like they were under Patrick McHenry's. Lastly, it's the stablecoin bill. French Hill has told me that he believes the market structure and stablecoin need to go at the same time, and I think that's going to be his goal until he tells me differently. That's what I expect. The Senate's taken a different approach. Bill Hagerty's bill, the Genius Act, which is a stablecoin legislation, has already moved out of the Senate Banking Committee. That's fine. They think the market structure can come later. Okay, well, the Senate, this is why the government was set up this way. So you have 2 different bodies that deliberate differently, and there's a tension between the 2 of them so that at the end of the day, you get the best possible result. And I think the process is working the way it was intended. Dollar-backed stablecoins, Tony, are so exciting to me because you're talking about exporting U.S. dollars around the world in a way that's never been done before. In fact, some give the example of the Brazilian cab driver who would love to be doing business today in dollars but cannot. Imagine a world where now that cab driver can do business with dollar-backed stable coins. It's more efficient, it's less friction, and he can gain access much easier than perhaps to the currency in his own jurisdiction. So I think both are going to happen. I'll finish with this. At the Crypto Summit, first ever held in the White House a few weeks ago, President Trump said he would like those 2 bills to his desk by the time of the August recess. So you see those go, then I think you'll see, like our Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act. You'll see the Securities Clarity Act. Different pieces of legislation will likely get hearings and very possibly be passed out of committee before the end of the year, but they won't have the same, unless the president decides otherwise, they won't have the same momentum as market structure, stablecoin, and the prohibition on central bank digital currencies.
There's a lot there, and I could definitely follow each thing you were saying, and the competition for ideas and passage, and I think that's what makes our political system great. Is you have a lot of ideas, and people trading the pros and cons, and then painting a vision like you did with the Brazilian taxi driver. That's kind of what you're talking about. Kind of brings it around. Otherwise, I don't understand a whole lot of what's going on, but that makes sense to me, for sure. I like something else you said in there about, people having certainty when they come into the thing. And there's I know we've got just a few minutes left, and I'm not going to ask, position stuff, but really just some advice. We, so, in credit union land, we're concerned about preserving the credit union tax exemption, and we're on capital. In fact, DCUC just sent a letter earlier this morning to all congressional offices, again, staking our position. What are your thoughts on that? How do we continue to press our case going forward to eventually asking our representatives, is that a yes or a no? Kind of like how you put earlier.
Well, I think you should be talking to your representatives about that issue, but I think I want to go at it this way, and I will answer the question. I will not be a politician that skirts around the actual answer. I'll give you mine. It's pretty direct. But first, I just want to tell you, for me, I don't care if you're the credit unions, you're the community banks, you're the big banks, you're non-banks, you're anybody who is involved in financial services in this great country. You guys are the ones that actually define freedom. Unlike every other country on the face of the planet where you got to know somebody or you got to be born into something, in the United States of America, any dumb schlub like me with a great idea for the next Harley Davidson, for the next Amazon, you name what it is, can go into a local financial provider, their credit union, their community bank, their et cetera. And the goal is we get into it together and we create the next great thing in this country. That's what we got to keep in mind. And I think going into the 21st century, we're going to have a discussion in the very near future about how we redesign banking in this country. Just because we passed a bunch of laws almost 100 years ago doesn't mean they still work today, right? But that conversation is a much bigger conversation. In the short term, you're talking to somebody who has said from day one when I got here, I'm not here to raise people's taxes. I'm not here to say, oh, you're not paying taxes, you need to pay taxes. My darn government has more money than it knows what to do with, and it just bends over backwards trying how to bleed everybody dry while we're just throwing cash out on the street. This is why we're here. We've got $37 trillion in debt, and we run a deficit every year on our budget of somewhere between 1.7 and $2 trillion. It's insane. You cannot sustain this. That's why there's going to be a big step towards fiscal sanity in this Congress. And I believe you'll see that continue in steroids after this Congress, because Americans know it's time. We can't carry this debt. We have a moral obligation to deal with this now so our kids and our grandkids don't have to deal with, and more importantly, so they can enjoy the freedom and prosperity that this great country's supposed to provide. So I would tell you to keep leaning in. I don't think you want to put yourself in a competitive or adversarial relationship with your colleagues in the financial services space. I think it's more, community banks shouldn't be taxed. I mean, if that's what you want to do, then let's take those taxes off as well. There are other ways to do this, but I don't see how you solve the problem by inflicting the same problem that you've created elsewhere on others like the credit union. So I've been adamantly opposed to that since I got here. And by the way, I'm a huge supporter of community banks, and they know that as well.
Well, that's great, Congressman, because I think I can count one now. So we'll start our count.
You better have more because
Absolutely.
Yeah.
217 more to go, and we're counting. So, well, sir, we've got just a few seconds left. Real quick as we close this off. Just looking back, what was your best day in the Congress, and why?
I would say that the best days have been, because it's not just one, right? I
Sure.
got to tell you, for me, it's being able to take 217 people, 219, 222. It is so rewarding, Tony, when you
Yes.
can take that group of people that you got to understand, there's so many different opinions in this group. There's so much emotion and ego involved. It's like any team, only on steroids, because it's so big. And to get them to go in the same direction, and literally, it's not pushing them or using the quote unquote whip. It's empowering them. Right. And when you see that you've empowered them to do the things that they came here to do, you've helped them, because these are really talented people. And they all come together, even though they may not even like each other in some cases. And I will tell you, they don't. They certainly don't agree on everything. To have that happen, and this year there have been 3 times that it's happened when everybody said there's no way. That and perhaps getting the opportunity that the American people have given us with Donald Trump in the White House and Republicans controlling the Senate and the House. I think it's a good day in Washington, D.C., as long as we perform on the things that the American people have hired us to do. And we got to bring our friends along. We've got a bunch of friends on the left side of center that literally are my grandfather's type of Democrat. They believe in fiscal sanity.
Sure.
They just have a little different approach. And we need to make sure that the American public sees us all working together and getting things done.
Well, thank you, sir, for your time. I really appreciate you coming back and doing this for our members. There's a ton of other questions I'd love to ask you, but I know we respect your time and leadership, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Defense Credit Union Council and all our members out there. The 40 million that are members of each of our credit unions. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your service to the United States of America. Thank you, sir.
Tony, as a proud member of the Navy Credit Union, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, sir. All right. Well, thank you, folks. We're going to conclude this for now, and we'll have copies of this. And again, we'll keep you all informed, and let's go out there and do a good job on behalf of the American consumer. Thank you all very much.
All good?